I found something in my mother's attic last month that changed everything I thought I knew about my family. What started as a simple cleanup after her passing became a journey into a secret that had been hidden for over 60 years. Mom had been gone for 3 weeks when I finally worked up the courage to tackle that dusty attic. You know how it is, we put off these things because they feel so final. I climbed those creaky wooden steps with a heavy heart, expecting to find the usual collection of Christmas decorations, old photo albums, and maybe some furniture worth keeping. The afternoon light was streaming through that small octagonal window, illuminating dust particles that danced in the air like tiny memories. I started with the obvious things, first boxers labeled holiday decorations and kitchen items. But then, I noticed something tucked way back in the corner, behind an old cedar chest that must have weighed 100 pounds. It was a small wooden box, no bigger than a shoebox, wrapped in what looked like an old tablecloth. My hands were shaking as I unwrapped it, though I couldn't say why. Inside, I found a collection of letters tied with a faded blue ribbon, a small black and white photograph, and a birth certificate that made my breath catch in my throat. The birth certificate was for a baby girl named Margaret Rose, born in 1962. The mother's name was listed as Dorothy May, my mother's name. But here's the thing that stopped my world. I was born in 1964, and I'm an only child, or at least, I thought I was. I sat there on that dusty attic floor, holding this piece of paper, feeling like the ground had shifted beneath me. My mother, the woman who raised me with such love and devotion, had never mentioned having another child. The silence in that attic felt deafening. With trembling fingers, I untied the ribbon around the letters. They were addressed to my mother, written in careful cursive handwriting. The return address showed they came from a Catholic home for unwed mothers in the next state over. As I read them, a story began to unfold that broke my heart and filled it with understanding all at once. The letters were from a nun named Sister Catherine, updating my mother about baby Margaret's placement with a loving family. They spoke of my mother's difficult decision, made when she was just 19 and unmarried, in a time when that carried such shame. The letters were gentle but formal, reassuring Mom that Margaret was thriving with her new parents. I found myself crying not just for the sister I never knew I had, but for my young mother who had to make such an impossible choice. In 1962, there weren't many options for a single woman with a baby. The judgment, the whispers, the way society treated unwed mothers, it must have been unbearable. The photograph showed a tiny baby with dark hair and the same nose I recognized from looking in the mirror. On the back, someone had written Margaret Rose, 3 months old, in my mother's familiar handwriting. I spent the rest of that day reading and rereading those letters, trying to piece together this chapter of my mother's life that she'd kept locked away. I understood now why she'd been so fiercely protective of me, why she'd always said I was her greatest blessing. I wasn't just her daughter, I was her second chance at motherhood. The hardest part was realizing that Mom had carried this secret alone for all these years. She never remarried, never had other children after me. I wondered how many times she thought about Margaret, wondered if she was happy, if she was loved, if she ever thought about the mother who gave her up. But then I found one more letter, dated just 5 years ago. It was different from the others, written on personal stationery, not the official letterhead of the home. It was from Margaret herself. She had found my mother through one of those ancestry websites. She wrote about her wonderful adoptive parents, her career as a teacher, her own children and grandchildren, but most importantly, she wrote about understanding why Mom had made the choice she did, and about forgiveness and gratitude for the life she'd been given. The letter ended with Margaret saying she didn't need to disrupt Mom's life, but that she wanted her to know she was happy and that she held no anger in her heart. She included a photo of herself with her family, and looking at it was like looking at a version of myself in another life. I realized then that my mother had died knowing her first daughter was happy and whole. That secret hadn't been a burden. In her final years, it had been a source of quiet peace. I've reached out to Margaret since then. We've talked on the phone, shared stories, and we're planning to meet next month. She's as nervous and excited as I am. We're both in our 60s now, but in some ways, we're like children about to meet for the first time. This discovery taught me that our parents' lives were so much richer and more complex than we often realize. They loved and lost and made impossible decisions long before we came along. Sometimes the secrets they keep aren't meant to hurt us, they're meant to protect us, or to protect themselves from pain too deep to share. If you're listening to this, and you have secrets of your own, Or, if you've discovered something about your family that changed everything you thought you knew, I want you to know that it's okay. Our stories are messy and complicated and beautiful, and that's what makes us human. Sometimes the most profound discoveries happen when we're just trying to clean out an attic.